The last couple days I've been making videos on the topic of this book, Inside the Atheist Mind by Anthony DeStefano. I'll leave a link down in the description. And I wanted to point out another, or bring to your attention another good point that he makes. And it's about a very popular argument that you often hear from atheists, especially in the comment section of YouTube videos. It's a very quick argument, very quick to articulate. It can sound very powerful, but in this video I want to point out where it fails and why atheists often use it to claim too much. The argument generally goes something like this, quote, "There is no evidence for God, and without evidence, I am not going to believe in God. I'm not going to believe in anything that doesn't have evidence." So again, that sounds kind of powerful, right? And it's a pretty big claim. Now, what is generally being stated without being specified in that argument is that what the atheist means here is that there is no scientific, natural evidence for God that can be run through something like the natural scientific method. And the atheist is saying, well, since science can't prove it, then I have no reason to believe. Now, whether there is actually any natural scientific evidence that can be put through the scientific method to prove the existence of God, that's somewhat debatable. But for the sake of this video, we'll just grant them that. There's no natural, you can't prove God with the scientific method. You're not going to find his fingerprints, on the moon or something like that, or his signature on a leaf of a plant. So we'll go ahead and grant them that. There is no natural scientific evidence that proves the existence of God. The problem with this argument is that the scientific method is not the only way to prove that something exists. And this is the thing that the atheist often fails to point out. They seem to suggest that if science can't prove it, there's no reason to believe it. But that's actually a foolish claim. There are things that we know exist that the scientific method cannot prove, and God would fall into that category. And these aren't just kind of woo-woo, superstitious kind of stuff that religious people believe. These are things that even non-religious people acknowledge exist, but that are outside of the realm of science to prove. A couple of those things would be, number one, logical or mathematical truths. Another would be ethics, moral judgments. Another would be aesthetic judgments. So yes, things can absolutely exist even though natural sciences can't prove that they exist, and this is acknowledged by even secular philosophers. So when you perhaps encounter this, or maybe if you're somebody who has made this argument yourself in the past, that since there is no natural evidence for God, that there's no reason to believe, what you're doing is you're making too much of natural scientific testing. You're acting like that is the beginning and end of all possible existence, and it's not. Even if we grant that God's existence can be proven through the scientific method, that doesn't mean that there's no reason to believe that God exists. To try to argue that would be to say that mathematical truths don't exist because we can't test them with the scientific method. No one in their right mind would argue that. So if you are an atheist and you're going to use this argument, make sure to clarify the limits of the natural sciences and what they're able to prove if you're really interested in honest discourse. And if you are perhaps a believer in God, don't be duped by this argument and thinking that it proves more than it actually does. Once again, the natural sciences and the evidence that can be tested with the natural sciences are not the be-all and end-all of potential existence.